Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Starcraft 2 tips and tricks series video. This is going to be a three-parter, and this is going to be part one. This one's going to be a kind of a lengthier one. It's going to be every single unit of every single race and building, upgrade, all of it explained. I got this idea from a fellow creator of mine. He gave it, we were there discussing the other day, and I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video like this. Now, the first race we're going to go over is Protoss, and because of the custom game I'm using, we're going to go over all the upgrades and what they do first. So, first you have your general basic ground upgrades, level 1 ground weapons and level 1 ground armor. This affects, gives +1 damage to your ground units. Plus, however, depending upon how much damage they do, like the Immortal gains more than 1 damage per attack, so does the Colossus and the Archon as well. Now, then you have your +1 air and armor upgrades that work the same way for your air units. Carriers gain 2 attacks, so do Phoenix, and Tempest gain, I think, 5 per attack. And then armor. Then you have shields. Now, shields affects everything, including buildings, which is why it's so expensive. And it's very good for units like Archons that have a bunch of shields and very little HP. So, the next upgrade we have is the Warp Gate upgrade, which, at this point, we're actually just gonna go through and get them all so we can look at them later. But the Warp Gate upgrade allows your gateways, which normally produce units at certain intervals, to turn into Warp Gates, which puts everything on a 30-second timer except for High Templars and Dark Templars, and allows you to warp them in almost instantaneously at a super pylon every so often. Then we are going to look at the charge upgrade, which in the old days it used to have a magic damage effect where it did damage upon impact, but now it increases their movement speed and they charge directly to their unit. They kind of push through smaller units when they are charging as well, and their charge can't really be canceled. Like, you can if you're far enough away, you might outrun it potentially, but it's very unlikely. Like with Zerglings, maybe. Then you have Blink, which a Blink allows the Stalker to move quickly up ramps if you have vision, things like that. Blink back away in terms of micro. All of those good things. It's a very good maneuverability tool that the Stalker can have. Makes them very versatile and volatile early game on throwing the balance. You have the Adept Resonating Glaives upgrade for the Adept. It increases their attack speed by 45%. This is very good for things that they can two-shot in terms of Zerglings and drones and things like that. It's used to hit some decent timings in PvP and PvZ. I don't see it quite as often in PvT. Next up, we have Psionic Storm. High Templar start off with a couple abilities, but when they don't start off with the Psionic Storm, this is a 75 energy ability. It takes 79 seconds to research. It is a storm that ticks once upon impact. It does 75, or immediately upon impact. It does 75 damage over 4 seconds to everything in that area. It is very good against generally light units or things with low hit points. So even if you have clumped up like siege tanks and things of that nature, it can still be effective. It is one of the only spells in the game that is actually effective against every single type of unit. Like, it hurts them no matter what, if they're in the air, on the ground, either way. Then we have Gravitic Boosters, which increases the movement speed of observers. This is very good. Generally used in PvP when all those big scouting battles are going on, especially when I've noticed a lot when pro players are playing Blinkstalker Disruptor that this upgrade comes out. But it gives you a lot more info. It helps you win the info war of the game. Then we have the Gravitic Drive upgrade, which increases the movement of Warp Prisms significantly, actually. This is generally used in-game, applicably, when you're doing things like a Disruptor or Colossus drop. So not quite that often, but you do get it every now and then. Extended Thermal Lance is the Colossus upgrade and makes the range of the Colossus go from 7 to 9, which is very good against armies like Bio Armies and Roach Hydra, because once you're doing this against a Roach Hydra upgrade, they now outrange everything that is there. You have the Anian Pulse Crystals upgrade, which increases the Phoenix attack range. Best used against Mutas or Phoenix versus Phoenix, because if your Phoenix have 2 more range than their Phoenix, you can kind of just, even with smaller numbers, if you're microing well, you could take a good fight. You have Flux Fades, which increases the speed and acceleration of the Void Ray. Now, the Void Ray already got a speed boost, so this makes them super speedy and allows them to maneuver around the map much more quickly, making the ability for them to get in and do damage and get out is a lot more potent after this upgrade is researched. It's just a quality of life upgrade that every Protoss player who plays Void Rays loves to get. Then you have Shadow Stride, which is the equivalent of Blink for Stalkers, but for Dark Templar. It's not quite as maneuverable as Stalker Blink, but the fact that DTs can blink at all is a massive upgrade. Allows them to get right on top of armies without having to walk there. So very good against ranged units and buildings such as Spore Crawlers, turrets, that detector units that you can get rid of. So that they can do damage after. Now we're going to go through all of this. What do these buildings do? This is the gateway where you can warp in the units I was talking about. They warp in an 4 seconds at a super pylon. It says 11 total, but it just speeds it up. The forge is where you get your shields upgrades, your weapons upgrades, and your armor upgrades for your ground units. Your cybernetics core is where you get the warp gate upgrade, as well as the air attack and armor. The Templar Archives is where you get Psionic Storm. Twilight Council is where you can get your charge, your blink, and your resonating glaives. The Dark Shrine allows you to get Dark Templar, as well as get Shadow Stride, aka Dark Templar Blink. The Robotics Facility is where you build Observers, War Prisms, Immortals, Colossus, and Disruptors. The Stargate, you can build Phoenix, Oracles, Void Rays, Tempests, and Carriers. And then you have your defensive structures over here, such as the Photon Cannon, which hits air and ground with a weapon speed of 0.089, and the Shield Battery, which heals the shields of... You can make it manually heal building shields, but it heals cannons and unit shields. It can also be overcharged to become a super battery. This makes it to where it heals faster, it restores 72 shields per second, and it takes no energy for this to... It takes no energy for it to restore shield. The Pylon, which is the powerhouse of it all, it powers every single building that you see here. Now we're going to go on the units. Now we have the Mothership, which is the capital ship of the Protoss army. It has 2 abilities, which is Time Warp and Recall. It can recall units to itself, as well as be recalled back afterwards. The Nexus has a recall ability, the Battery Overcharge, and Chrono Boost. So Chrono Boost makes structures produced more quickly they would otherwise. It lasts for 20 seconds and increases the production rate by 50%. Now we've already got the Mothership out of the way. Now we have the Dark Templar, who, if you have 2 Templar, Dark Templar or a High Templar, you can merge them to create an Archon, which is a more powerful attacking unit with a bunch of shields. But the Dark Templar have Blink as well, and they are permanently cloaked. You have the Void Ray, who is kind of like, they're a sustained attacking unit. They kind of like leash. Once they lock onto something, their range will increase as the unit is trying to run away, and they will kind of like follow them. They have an ability called Prismatic Alignment, which makes them do significantly more damage to armored targets. It increases their versus armored damage by 6, making them do 19 per attack instead of 9. Very significant increase. And they have a move speed of 4.65, so they can get around pretty quickly, as well as their like kind of weird turning mechanics. You have the Warp Prism, which can pick up any ground unit. Now, every ground unit has a different amount of size. Like an Archon is worth half. Mortal's worth half, a Zealot is worth a 1/4, and a Probe is worth an 1/8. But a Colossus, for example, is worth a whole prism. So, out the way, you have a Disruptor, which is a very hit or miss unit. You fire a Purification Nova. Anything within this Nova will take 145 splash damage and an additional 55 shield damage upon impact. We have the Colossus, which is a Cliff Walker. They can walk up and down cliffs, as well as they have 9 range, and they have 2 attacks, meaning that they attack in kind of like a little swish, like crisscross pattern. Very good against light units. Archons, they do a massive attack that has a small amount of area damage, and they have a majority of their health is shields, which makes them very vulnerable to units like Ghosts. You have the Zealot, which is very good at getting on top of things with the charge ability. He gets right on top of there, and is very good for body blocking units and things like that. You have the Immortal, which has a barrier that absorbs up to 100 damage for 2 seconds, and he is a tank buster. He does massive amounts of damage versus armored targets, as well as has a very good survivability rate because of the said barrier. You have a Sentry, which has a couple abilities. It has the Force Field ability, putting a slight wall up to block out any units that aren't massive. Now, massive units can break said force fields by walking through them. It just immediately breaks them. You have Hallucination, which means you can create a fake unit of any kind. Like, for example, I'm going to make the Oracle. Now, these units can't actually do anything, and they take double damage. When something attacks a hallucination, it takes double the amount of damage that it normally would, which is a good way for the opposing race to tell if it is a hallucination or not. And then you have Guardian Shield, which creates a 4.5 range aura that reduces incoming range damage to friendly units by 2. Lasts 11 seconds. It's very good when you're taking fights against like Bio armies or Hydra armies. It significantly reduces the damage output of said armies. You have the High Templar, which has the feedback ability. Feedback allowing it to drain the energy from a target, doing half of the energy drained as damage. And then you have the Storm ability, which is what we were talking about earlier, which is a Psionic Storm that does 75 damage over 4 seconds. Actually, maybe it's more than that. 80 damage, excuse me. Perfect amount of damage to kill a sentry. Every 0.5 seconds for 4 seconds. And it's anything in this little blue area, so definitely a very good ability to have. Next, you have the Carrier, which creates smaller units called Interceptors that are not targetable. Each Interceptor has 40 shields and 40 HP. And the Interceptors attack twice, and they do 5 damage to start per attack, but 8 with +3. And their Carriers are very good burst damage. You have multiple amounts of Carriers that have 8 Interceptors apiece, so you will have a bunch of tiny units bursting damage down. Then you have Tempests, which are your anti-air range. They have a ability called Tectonic Destabilizers, which makes them do +40 damage to ground structures. This was added in to try to help break the Zerg Spore Forest type of thing. The animation turns orange when you're attacking buildings and is still blue when you're attacking units. Now, they have 14 range when it comes to air units and only 10 when it comes to ground. So they're definitely your massive anti-air targets. They do for 67 versus massive. They're very good versus things like battle cruisers and carriers and even other Tempests because they are just big. Then you have the Oracle, which has 3 abilities. A stasis trap that if anything walks in it, it is now going to be trapped for 21 seconds once in the stasis ward. It has the Revelation ability, which anything in this blue area will be revealed to the opposing, to your view of the opposing player's army for 15 seconds. And it has the Activate Pulsar Beam, which then gives it an attack that makes it do 15 damage versus regular and 22 versus light. This allows you to usually easily pick off workers and or in some cases do very well against light units because they do extra damage to light. We're going to go with the Observer, who is a detector, and it's cloaked, so it gives you constant vision. It also has a surveillance mode. That way you can't all-army it. With the E key, it goes up a little higher, gives it a little more vision, and allows you to make sure you know what your opponent's doing. We're going to go with the most basic unit of the Protoss arsenal, the Probe. Probes can warp in absolutely anything. They are the backbone to your entire economy, and definitely something they could be used decently in defensive situations sometimes, but generally speaking, they're better at just mining and building buildings. They also have a spray ability that allows you to add a decal and spray it on your opponents if you're feeling maybe a little BM that day or something. But next we have the Stalker, which is a very quick attacking unit that does decently well against armored, very maneuverable, high speed, and it also has the blink ability, allowing it to get out of sticky situations very quickly. A general versatile fighter that's used very well early on, kind of expensive, so you definitely don't want to lose it, but you, generally speaking, can get a lot done with these units. Parting is a good example of that. And last but not least, we have the Phoenix. The Phoenix is an anti-air fighter that can only attack air units, but it also has an ability called Graviton Beam, which allows it to lift the ground unit into the air and lets it be attacked by other Phoenix that are around it. This is a very good tool when it comes to harassing workers and things of that other nature, putting you further and further ahead in the game. And that's every Protoss unit and the entire Protoss arsenal, along with every upgrade and every building. I hope this was somewhat informative for you guys. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I will be doing a Terran and Zerg edition very soon, if not today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next Starcraft 2 tips and tricks video. Peace.